They thought I was too old to matter, but they forgot old hearts still beat, old hands still hold secrets, and old eyes see everything. Welcome, my story family. If you're new here, pull up a chair. You are about to feel every heartbeat of this journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, because tonight, we're going somewhere together. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and lemon soap, the kind of scent that usually made me feel safe. But that morning, it felt heavy, almost mocking. The light from the window fell across the table in long stripes, and I sat in my usual chair, fingers curled around a chipped teacup. My son stood by the doorway, holding an envelope like it was nothing important. His wife hovered behind him, smiling politely but avoiding my eyes. "We're going to Paris, Mom," he said, his voice light, almost too light. "You just watch the house, okay?" I blinked, unsure I'd heard him right. Watch the house. My voice came out softer than I intended, like a guard dog. They both laughed, quick, nervous chuckles that didn't reach their eyes. He stepped closer and set the envelope on the table. "It's just easier this way. You know, the walking, the flights, the crowds, it might be too much for you." Too much for me. The words landed like stones in my chest. I nodded slowly, hiding the sudden heat in my eyes by reaching for my tea. My hands trembled just enough to make the teaspoon rattle against the cup. They didn't notice. They were already talking about suitcases and passports, about museums they'd see and caves they'd try. Their voices were full of plans that had no place for me. Inside, something small and stubborn twisted awake. I wasn't sure if it was anger, sadness, or both tangled together. But I kept my smile polite, the way you do when you don't want people to see the crack forming in your heart. "Of course," I murmured. "I'll take care of everything here." When they left, the house fell into a silence so deep I could hear the clock in the hallway ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Each one felt like a reminder that time was slipping through my fingers, that they thought I had no use beyond watering plants and locking doors. I walked through the rooms, touching the backs of chairs, the edges of picture frames, the cool glass of the window. I remembered when I could outwalk both of them on city streets, when my laugh had echoed in foreign train stations, when my photographs had been the ones pinned to postcards. But now, in their eyes, I was just old, a shadow of the woman they once knew. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The moonlight made pale shapes across the walls, like ghosts leaning in to listen. My body was still, but my mind was restless. I thought of Paris, the narrow cobblestone alleys, the smell of fresh bread, the way the river caught the light at sunset. I had dreamed of going there since I was a girl, and now they were going without me. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket up to my chin, and felt that stubborn twist inside me again, sharper this time. Maybe they thought I was too old to matter, but they were about to find out that I still had a few surprises left. The next morning came slow and gray, the kind of morning where the air feels heavy before you even open the door. My knees ached a little as I put on my cardigan, the soft blue one with worn elbows, and slid my feet into old slippers. I wasn't expecting anything in the mail. Bills, maybe. A catalog I didn't ask for. Nothing worth hurrying over. But there was something in me that needed fresh air, even if it was only the few steps from my porch to the mailbox. The grass was still wet from last night's rain, and the sky hung low, like it might cry again any minute. I walked slowly, feeling the damp wood of the porch under my slippers, my breath puffing out in small clouds. The metal of the mailbox was cold against my hand as I lifted the little door. And there they were, 2 glossy envelopes, not bills, not junk. Thick, smooth paper with my son's handwriting in the corner. My fingers brushed over the weight of them, and I knew, before I even tore one open, that it wasn't a letter. It was a ticket. Shiny white cardstock, their names printed in crisp black ink with Paris staring back at me in bold letters. One way to a dream I'd been told I wasn't fit for. The second ticket was identical, 2 seats together. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the paper rest in my palm. My heart began to beat in a strange rhythm, not fear exactly, but something alive and warm. I looked around the quiet street. The houses were still, curtains drawn, A dog barked somewhere far away. I could almost feel the tickets hum in my hands, as if they were daring me to do something. Well, isn't that interesting? I said out loud, my voice low and steady. The words tasted strange on my tongue, like they belonged to a younger, sharper version of me. A woman who had once bought a last-minute train ticket to Madrid just because she saw a photo of the cathedral in a magazine. A woman who had laughed at the idea of too much walking or too much trouble. I slid the tickets back into their envelopes and tucked them under my arm, my mind already running ahead of me. What would they do if they came looking for these? Would they even notice they were gone before the airport? And why? Why on earth had they ended up in my mailbox in the first place? A mistake, a cruel joke, or something else entirely? By the time I reached the porch again, the chill in the air had crept into my bones, but I didn't mind. I felt awake. My fingers tightened around the envelopes, as if holding them a little too hard might press my thoughts into them. The house welcomed me back with its usual silence, but now it felt different, like it was listening, watching, waiting for what I might do next. I set the tickets down on the kitchen table, their glossy edges catching the dim light, and I stared at them as though they might start speaking. Maybe they already had. The tickets lay in the center of the kitchen table like they owned the room. I hadn't moved them since I brought them in. Their clean white edges caught the light every time the sun slid past the clouds, almost winking at me. I sat down across from them with my tea, though I barely touched it. My eyes kept going back to those names in black print, my son's, his wife's, and the destination in bold letters, Paris. Paris. I let the word roll through my mind slowly, tasting it. My throat tightened, not from sadness now, but from something sharper, the same way a blade gleams when you tilt it just right. My fingers brushed the envelopes flat. I could still put them back in the mailbox. Pretend I'd never seen them. Pretend I didn't feel this ache in my chest, or the tiny electric thrill curling at the edges of my thoughts. But pretending had been my role for too long. Pretending I wasn't lonely. Pretending I was fine being left behind. Pretending my body and mind were too tired to want more. I opened the drawer under the phone and pulled out the small notebook where I kept important numbers. My son's, the plumber's, the travel agency's. I found the agency's number in neat blue ink, written from the last time I'd helped them arrange a trip. I picked up the phone. It felt heavier than usual, as if it knew what I was about to do. The dial tone hummed in my ear. Then a bright, too cheerful voice answered. "Good morning. This is Marion with Blue Skies Travel. How can I help you?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I'd like to cancel 2 tickets to Paris." The name's Air. I read them carefully from the cardstock. There was a pause. "I see. May I ask why?" "Yes," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "I am sure." The clicking of her keyboard filled the line. "All right. The refund will be processed in a few days." "That's fine," I said, then hummed up before she could ask another question. The room was silent again, but the air felt different, thicker, somehow charged. My heartbeat was strong, almost too loud in my ears. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone back in its cradle, but it wasn't from fear. It was from the rush of knowing I had just changed the ending of a story they thought they were writing without me. I glanced at the clock. They wouldn't be leaving for another day. They probably assumed their precious tickets were already packed neatly in a suitcase, waiting for the trip of a lifetime. But I had them, and now the trip of a lifetime wasn't happening for anyone, unless I said so. The thought sent a slow, dangerous smile creeping across my face. They'd learn soon enough. You don't tell a woman she's too old for her dreams and expect her to sit quietly at home. By late afternoon, the sky had turned the color of bruised steel. The air pressed against the windows, heavy and still, as though the whole world was holding its breath. Somewhere far off, thunder muttered like an old man complaining to himself. I stood in the living room, the curtains half closed, watching the clouds swallow the last scraps of daylight. The tickets were still on the kitchen table behind me, untouched since the call. They seemed to pull at my thoughts even from another room. The first drop of rain hit the window, fat and slow. Then another. Then a scatter of them, tapping the glass like impatient fingers. The sound grew faster, harder, until the whole house seemed wrapped in the hiss of water. I paced, The wooden floor creaked under my slippers, an old rhythm that matched the beating in my chest. I thought of their faces when they realized. Would they be shocked? Angry? Hurt? The image shifted in my mind. Sometimes it made my stomach twist. Sometimes it made me want to laugh out loud. The wind picked up, rattling the panes. Shadows in the corners of the room began to shift and stretch. Every flicker of lightning threw new shapes against the walls, tall, strange shapes that vanished as quickly as they came. I caught myself rehearsing lines in my head. You thought I couldn't handle Paris? I am raising you in a house with no heat. Too much walking. I walked miles to work with holes in my shoes. Too much trouble. Trouble is finding out your mother isn't the quiet, harmless thing you thought she was. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I went to the hallway mirror and studied my own reflection in the dim light. The storm outside made my face look sharper, my eyes brighter. Older, yes, but not faded, not weak. Another crash of thunder rolled over the roof, and for a moment, it was as if the sound came from inside the walls. The power flickered, the lamp stuttered, and I stood still, waiting for darkness. When the light steadied again, I exhaled slowly. The smell of rain crept through the open kitchen window, damp and earthy, almost metallic. I returned to the table and placed my hand on the tickets. The paper was cool, almost slick from the humidity. I thought about tearing them in half right then, feeding the pieces into the fireplace, watching Paris vanish in a curl of smoke. But no, letting them see the intact tickets in my hand would sting more than ashes ever could. Outside, the rain turned to a roar, and the wind slammed against the siding. The storm was fully here now, pounding the house, making it shudder. I sat down, my fingers still resting on the envelopes, and listened to the chaos. They would be home soon enough, stepping into a house charged with the same restless energy as the air tonight. The storm outside would pass. The one inside this house was only beginning. The rain had eased into a slow, steady drip by the time their car pulled into the driveway. The tires hissed against the wet gravel, the headlights slicing through the mist. I was already standing in the hallway, the tickets in my hand waiting. The front door swung open with more force than needed. My son stepped in first, his hair damp, his face flushed with frustration. His wife trailed behind, clutching her coat. "Mom!" His voice was sharp, like it had been waiting hours to be unleashed. "What did you do?" I didn't move. I didn't even blink. "I canceled them," I said, my tone as flat as the kitchen table where those tickets had rested for 2 days. He froze, as if the words didn't make sense at first. "You canceled our Paris trip?" "Yes." His wife's voice trembled, part anger, part disbelief. "Why? Do you have any idea how much planning?" "I do," I cut in, my eyes fixed on theirs. "I know exactly how much planning it takes to chase something you want. I planned for years to see Paris. I planned before you were even born. And now, you plan to tell me I'm too old, too slow, too much trouble, and you expect me to smile while you go without me." The room went still except for the faint ticking of the clock. My son's jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that. We were trying to make it easier." "Easier for who?" My voice rose, but not in a scream, in that low, steady way that cuts deeper. "Easier for you? So you wouldn't have to wait for me to catch my breath. So you wouldn't have to slow down for my knees. Or was it easier to believe I couldn't keep up at all?" His wife stepped forward, her expression softening. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I said quietly. "You made me invisible in my own family." I stepped closer, holding up the tickets. They glistened faintly in the dim light, still crisp and perfect. "If you want to travel, we all go, or no one does. That's the rule now." Silence hung in the air, heavy as the rain clouds still lingering outside. My son looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in days. His shoulders dropped. His voice, when it came, was smaller. "You could have just said you wanted to come." I let out a sharp breath, half laugh, half sigh. Some things shouldn't have to be said. He reached for the ticket slowly, but I didn't let go until I felt the weight of his grip match mine. For a moment, we stood locked there, past against present, pride against love. Then I released them. His wife's eyes were wet. She glanced at him, then back at me. "Then we'll start over," she whispered. "All of us." Something in my chest loosened. The storm inside finally broke, not with thunder, but with the quiet warmth of arms wrapping around me. Paris could wait a few days. Tonight, we had mending to do. Lesson learned. Sometimes the people who love you the most forget you're still alive inside. They see your wrinkles, but not your fire. They count your years, but not your dreams. And if you let them, they'll write you out of your own story. But here's what I learned. Age is not a cage. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. And the moment you believe you're too old, that's when they win. Don't hand them that victory. Speak up. Take your place at the table. And if they won't make room for you, you make room for yourself. If this story touched you, my story family, hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss a moment, and share this with someone who needs a reminder of their worth. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, and tell me this. Have you ever been left out of something you deserve to be part of? I want to hear your story.